This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
Welcome to the NBA Team podcast. I am not Andrew Riche, obviously. I am Adam Murray. And that means we're going to have another solo bolo today, and I apologize in advance for that. I got a couple topics to discuss, being the Clippers being the Clippers, the Bucks being the Bucks, LeBron's streak ending, basically kind of like the start of the fall of the NBA as we know it, I would say. And then a very long, drawn-out explanation of the World Cup draw for Andrew. I am Adam Murray. Andrew is not here today. He is off for the week. He has a bye week, so I am here manning the fort. So first, I want to get into the Chris Paul thing. And as we had just started to feel bad for the Clippers, they were too old. On paper, they look great. Last year, they seemed to be they got it together. You added pieces that looked like they would work. Brook Lopez as a backup, John Collins, who was not used in Utah. You bring in Bradley Beal, who should have a chip on his shoulder. You bring in Chris Paul, who came there for one last hurrah. And then the wheels came off immediately. They went out of the lot, and then the car just literally rusted to the ground. And that's where we are. You have a team who is too old. You have Brook Lopez getting DNPs. John Collins doesn't fit. Norman Powell recaptured his form and is just looking awesome in the new fast tempo Miami Heat. Bradley Beal is out for the year, so he's in midseason form. Chris Paul just basically alienated everyone on that team, I guess, through constant complaining and criticism and sort of micromanaging and wanting to win. And I understand both sides of it. It was sort of, like a Denver situation. You're just rubbing everyone in the upper management and all the brass wrong, saying this is what you're doing wrong. This is the problem. This is the problem. This is the problem. I want to win. And everyone seems to know it's a lost season. And you already gave the keys to Kawhi and Harden. So the strong leadership isn't really there. And we're just going to ignore all the rumors and the stories, and this person hated this and this person hated that, and they already wrote this off, and this happened or this might not have happened. But basically, Chris Paul just wanted to win. He tried to will the team, and it was just a lot of old guys going, yeah, whatever, it is what it is. And his style just wore very thin. And of course, with his career being 20 years as such, he's earned that right to have that criticism. And since there's no young people on that team to mentor, he was trying to coach the team almost. And you have Coach Lou, who is just like, yeah, I don't want to hear it. You can't treat a guy like that. If you had Jimmy Butler and this happened, you could be like, I'm not so sure who's at fault here, but you did Chris Paul dirty. Chris will sit at home for a couple of months, come in at the trade deadline to probably the Lakers or the Knicks, going ring chasing, which he should, although he doesn't have much left in the tank. But they didn't need to do him like that. And again, they're feeling bad for this team. They're like, oh man, they're tried. They're slowly trying to rebuild things. They have a 2-year window with all these old guys, sort of the last hurrah of last hurrahs. And then you just show why you did this, just like Blake Griffin, who signed the max deal saying, I want to stay here, and you trade him right during that season to Detroit. Man, it's rough for the Clippers fans. Just, you have always just something like you're cursed. Somebody just put a hex on you and they can't get out of it. Speaking of hexes and curses, right now that's sort of where the Milwaukee Bucks. As news reported that Giannis is going to talk to management about where he fits in with this team. Oh, well, if you're fine and you're happy, nobody says anything. So that was leaked saying, yeah, we're done here. And then mysteriously he gets injured, which will be out for a month, which will probably extend to 2 months right to the trade deadline so every team can get their offer in because you're not going to have a Utah Walker Kessler situation saying, pony up pony up the offers. Oh, he's out for the year. We can't trade him now. We're stuck. He has no value. So it is a shame, but that's what happens when you get super desperate. They did everything they did to appease him. You trade for veteran after veteran. You get Dame Lillard, who gets injured. It's not anybody's fault. And then you panic and jettison him, and it's just like, well, now I have. What are we going to do now? But they tried, and ultimately, their inability to draft or develop young people was their downfall, as they just traded everything away to try to win now continuously. But the good news is for Milwaukee, as depressing as it is, sort of like when Garnett left Minnesota, they are going to get a huge haul for him. So they're not going to be completely like Washington Wizards when you had the John Wall and Bradley Beal train leave. And then right now they're just sort of Tonka trains, just really doing nothing. So they should get pieces. They should have stuff to build around. However, it is a shame. Also, just, not to defend anything. Giannis is 31. He's already getting injured. We're slowly in like 2 or 3 years going to start reaching Embiid territory where he's going to have this $60-70 million contract and it's going to become an albatross the sort of way it is now. And the way in the end Lillard's contract became, because that 60 million just killed that franchise. If he was 30 or 40, they could have made some moves, but they literally had nowhere to go. And speaking of nowhere to go, that leads me to the next point of the NBA sort of at a precipice right now. I think, and this is all my takes this year have sort of been a nice warm glass of milk just sitting in the sun. They age so well. I think this is kind of the end of the NBA right now as we know it, because we have teams that are up against the hard cap. And so deals can't be made and everything can't work because nobody has money and nobody could do anything to move around. In the olden days, it would just, Giannis would be either sent to Utah or Brooklyn because they got the most picks. So Brooklyn, like, here's 6 picks. Take anybody on our team. Take our whole team if you want. We'll trade teams. And now superstars can pick their destination. We want to go to New York. New York has no money. They can't sign anybody to make that deal work and offer things. Can't. You have Dallas, who is up against the hard cap. You have Ryan Nembhard, who is on a 2-way, who's just basically playing out of his mind right now. So he's going to get elevated to a standard contract. However, I believe if they sign him to a standard contract now, they only have $14,000 left for the rest of the year under the cap. Like, what kind of craziness is that? The double tax line and the hard caps and the trading and all that, it has created, like, you killed the Celtics franchise. You have, Oklahoma City right now, which we mentioned with their window and whatnot. Yeah, you're not going to be paying SGA, who's going to be up for another Supermax extension soon, with Jalen Williams and Chet. Chet's going to go. Okay, they get the Clippers pick. They get number 1. They get, Dybantsa from BYU. He replaces Holmgren, and you could ship out Holmgren's $40 million. But you can't keep the dynasty together. You can't have the Warriors like the 2016 of all those guys making that money. You've seen it. The crunch has come, and it's come at the expense of sort of, I don't want to say competition, but man, everybody's injured now. Everybody's having these calf injuries, and you're seeing 2-way players start, and you're like, who the hell is this guy on Denver? Because there's nobody left because they're all injured. And your star players, your product you're putting out on Amazon with this 4K, it looks visually awesome. And man, who is this clown? I don't know where he came from. I mean, we love Jordan Walsh here in Boston now all of a sudden, who finally has put it together after 3 years. But man, do we want to see Jordan Walsh and Josh Minot come out in the Myers Cada? Yeah, Namias Keita, Portuguese, first Portuguese player in the NBA, I believe. Portugal in the World Cup. Listen to my way too long, way too rambly explanation for Mr. Riche in absentia. See, if he were here, it would have been way shorter. It would have been way better. He would have give something like, I don't even know where these countries are. Which one have you been to? Like the woman in the office, not to be stereotypical. The woman in the office who picks the NCAA bracket. I'm just picking by mascots. They got a cute one, so I'm gonna pick them to go. That's how I expect Andrew. I don't know. Who is this? Where's Uruguay? They sound like they could be good. I don't know who they are, what they do. Anywho, I digress. Yeah, you just have a lot of like injuries and a lot of backup players and a lot of backups to backups, and it just makes the product look bad, especially if you have bad teams. You have LeBron, but when you see Bronny James like starting, even though he's not, but just an example, like you see Bronny James playing, you're like, oh no, this isn't what I paid for. On paper, it all looks so great, but then all the players like, yeah, we're gonna play, and then all of a sudden, yeah, we all got calf injuries, and we know a calf injury will lead to a torn ACL or a torn Achilles, and I'm just gonna take this time off, especially this early in the season. Like, yeah, nobody cares now. That's fine. However, it's not a good look when you have like I said, the Peacock or the Amazon game of the day, and the team you're putting on the court is like, man, these are all second string players. And last on the list of topics I wanted to get into real quickly, LeBron's 10-point double digit feet going since 2007. And yeah, all good things must come to an end. We knew it was going to happen. But the way ESPN did it, like, I get my alerts, and LeBron only has 6 points in the fourth quarter. LeBron passes up the chance to continue a streak for the game-winning assist to Rui Hachimura. Man, LeBron shot 4 for 17 and shot 0 free throws. You shoot 0 free throws and 17 shots, you're just taking jumpers. And if you're missing all your jumpers, he was probably wise to be like, you know what? It's better that I pass it off as opposed to bricking this game winner, potential game winner. So, but no, just great. Like LeBron, yeah, there are tons of games who's just padding stats and getting in there just to keep the streak going. But throughout his career, like people want to hate on it, and people want to hate on him versus Jordan versus Kobe, and they're different times and different eras. Jordan's basketball was a lot different than LeBron's. Well, LeBron played with his friends and he did that. Well, yeah. Again, times were different, and you still have to win these games. And even though you have a super team, other people put on super teams. He didn't win as much because you had Golden State. You had Clay, Steph, and Draymond taking titles away from him with their dynasty and throwing Durant in there too. So you can have Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade. You still needed to win, which it's a lot easier said than done. And there were, I don't want to say a lot more superstars now than there were back then. You had Jordan, and okay, who are you going against? Oh, you got Clyde Drexler in Portland. Okay, we love Clyde, but no. Well, you got, Bill Laimbeer and Isaiah Thomas. Yeah, but they're not. Every team didn't have a superstar. Whereas nowadays in the NBA, you still have a Devin Booker on a terrible Phoenix team. You have a Anthony Edwards on a Minnesota team, which is him. You had Luka carrying Dallas all by himself for that time. So it's always, the old guys are always going to defend their old times, and the new guys are always defend the new times, because the kids, they don't know anything about Jordan other than just highlights. They don't know anything about the season. Even back then, you'd be like, well, yeah, but look at Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain. They were, yeah, that was generation. Times change. Even in the NFL, Roger Staubach and Joe Namath are vastly different than having the Tom Brady and Peyton Mannings. Sports science is a thing now. It never was back then. I mean, they were just wearing sneakers, like straight up like cons. But now they have load management. They don't play. Yeah, they also run like way more than they did. The game is way more physical now. It was more rugby back then in the 80s, but if you're running will say 15 miles versus 10 miles over 82 games running 5 more miles per game. You're putting tons of mileage on. And these kids didn't have 4 years of college with 20 or 30 games. You're coming out 19 years old playing 80 games. So times are different. And, big ups to LeBron for doing it and lasting it this long. We see he's at the end of the line now, but say what you want. It's been fun to watch him, fun to root against him. The worst thing you can have is like a Michael Jordan Wizard situation where it's just like, man, you used to be good. What happened? Or when Kobe, when he was sapping up the cap for the Lakers and the Lakers were terrible, and it's just like, man, it's embarrassing right now. LeBron will probably get to that point if he plays another year or two, but just he's good for him for keeping it up this long at this age and doing all that. So yeah, with that said, those are just a couple of the big things that have gone on right now that I figured deserved a quick Mike Muscana little rant. Mike Muscana being the Louisiana ESPN radio guy. I don't want to use Mike the Mad Dog or any of those New York radio based guys because, this is for Mr. Riche. This is just a mention to him. So now on to my very long, rambly FIFA World Tournament draw. And now it's time for my very drawn out World Cup analysis. And by very drawn out, I mean there's any at all, especially for a basketball podcast. And considering I know very little about soccer or football, trying to explain to somebody who knows even less, not a good idea, considering, like I said, I've just been nice hot milk sitting out in the sun takes all year. But okay, the World Cup draw just happened this past Friday. I'm not going to get into every bracket. I'm not going to get into every pot, if you will, every group, because there's no need to get that deep into it because it's the same. It's like the NCAA tournament. First off, every year, the same UC tournament, who's favored? Oh, well, who's going to win it? It's the same teams. Oh, well, the draw just happened. Well, I like Duke. Well, I like UConn. I like Florida. I like Houston. It's the same schools every year. The top seeds of the tournament, the top favorites. The same way, the same nations every World Cup cycle are up there at the forefront. It's very rare to have, even like Brazil. Brazil used to be like the UCLA of World Cup. World's most storied franchise, if you will, throughout history, but recently fallen upon hard times. Recently, everybody caught up to them. However, they're still, I would imagine, one of the top favorites, as always. Just quickly, the favorites are always France, I think, is the number one favorite still. Spain, England. England is like the Cowboys. They're good. They've always been good, but they've never gotten over that hump in decades upon decades. But you can't tell them that. They always somehow wind up underachieving at the end, getting crestfallen, snake bitten, whatever. Anywho, France, England, Spain, and then Brazil and Argentina are the two upper tier ones. The second tiers are always the Portugal, Germany. Italy used to be there, but they've fallen off. And that's just sort of every year. Those are the 1 and 2 seeds. France, Spain, England, Brazil, and Argentina take any year. Combination of that. As far as the tournament itself, where's the group of death? That doesn't exist anymore because they had 16 teams, and of that, 8 of the 12 third place teams move on. So basically, anyone who's a Curacao, Cape Verde, anyone who's just a terrible team, it's just to sort of get them out first. It's like saying, oh, the NCAA tournament doesn't start until you get to the Sweet 16, or hey, thanks, High Point. Hey, thanks, South Carolina Upstate. Congratulations for making the tournament. You, however, the 16 seed, you have to face the number one. You're going to get bounced literally right after the tip off. Same thing. Curacao, I expect to lose I expect them to lose like 7-0 every game. It's not going to even be close or competitive because they don't. It just is not going to be. That's not the way soccer works. And you have soccer federations like Brazil, who them alone is just higher than the GDP of the entire nation of some of these countries. So not gonna happen. But as I was saying, group of death. Group of death used to be, you'd have just the random draw of random draws. And then you could have a Brazil be pitted against an England, be pitted against Asia's best team, which would be Japan, South Korea, or Iran. They could all be in the same bracket because that was just, it was every country has to go. You can't have a random draw, which will have 3 European nations in it. You need to sort of spread it around. However, they changed it to the ranking system and sort of spread it out. And with so many groups now having 12 groups, you're not going to see anything it'll be hard groups, but nothing where it's like, I don't know which two of these groups teams are going to move on because it's fairly certain just the way the tier is. Like there were two groups that sort of stood out to me personally, and that would be only because of the upset potential of the bottom ones. Obviously, first, anybody who has a European playoff team is going to be way better and way more difficult than somebody who is in pot four. So let's just jump to Group E, which is Germany, Curacao, Ivory Coast, and Ecuador. Yeah, Germany and Ecuador, that's a tough matchup for them. That's would be a group of death, but they're playing Curacao, so that's an easy 3 points for each one. And then, Ivory Coast, they should beat. So it's not, you don't have three teams vying for two spots because we know Curaçao's not going to move on. But if you have a playoff path team like the U.S., Group D, that has the U.S., that has a playoff path team, granted, it's the weakest of the playoff path teams because it's Slovakia, Kosovo, Turkey, and Romania. I don't know who will even move on from that group. I guess maybe Slovakia, but the United States, Paraguay, and Australia, there's no real threat amongst any of those teams, but having a Slovakia in there, well, that can be a tie, and having a tie, well, you're not going to move on in points if you're the C team because everybody's beating up on Curacao in the other brackets. So it's a lot difficult, especially Canada. Canada in Group B has a tough to go, and they can even finish in fourth place because the host is automatically in the A group. It's just like the college football playoff. Congratulations, Tulane. You got into the college football playoff tournament. Oh, yeah, you're going to be facing Ohio State. The same thing. Canada, you guys are hosting, so you're in the A bracket. So you're in the same pot as Spain, France, Argentina, Brazil. So you're not going to play them, but you're hosting. So whoever is in the B and C pot is automatically stronger than you because you should have been in the C to begin with. So Canada has to face Qatar, who hosted the last World Cup, so they are an upswing. Switzerland, who's a very always strong contender coming out of the European federations, and then the European A path winner, which should be Italy. So you have Italy, Switzerland, and Qatar, who could possibly beat host Canada, and Canada could finish in fourth place. As far as groups of death, you're not going to have these. It's just more difficult paths to move to the playoffs as opposed to the easy route of everybody pouncing on Curacao or Cape Verde. So there's no real. So yeah, now with the addition of all these third place teams, you have, let's say, Germany in Group E. They defeat Ecuador and Curacao and Ivory Coast. They get 9 points. They're first place. They get to play the third place team from groups A, B, C, or D. So you can have a Germany versus a Australia or Scotland or Qatar. it's not gonna be as if, oh well, in the group of death, the 32 team days. Well, okay, Germany winning first place in the E group has to automatically play the second place team in Group F. And then, but Group F was the group of death, and they had Brazil and England, and England upset Brazil, so it's going to be Germany versus Brazil in the second round. And you're not going to have it where you're going to have these, I really think, difficult second round matchups. So, yeah, that's sort of my long rundown of the World Cup draw. And by long, I mean we've discussed any minutes on this. As far as anything else going on, I'll just leave the NCAA football to itself right now. Anywho, wrapping this up, again, you can search our feed on any of your favorite podcast platforms. Just search the NBA team or Andrew Riche. All the archives can be found at the Place to Be Nation, so check that out for old takes and older takes and colder takes. So for Andrew Riche on his bye week, I am Adam Murray. Thank you for listening. Have a good one.